It all kicked off with a tiny leak, a single line hidden deep in a classified telegram message. But man, it was enough to shake an entire continent. Burkina Faso's leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, suddenly faced a nightmare. The West wanted 70% of his country's gold reserves. And the kicker? He had just 48 hours to comply. If he refused, Burkina Faso would be forced to pay off a crushing debt of $5.6 billion, plus interest, and the name at the bottom of the cable was none other than Donald J. Trump, the then President of the United States. Trump's move wasn't just political theater. This was raw power, served cold. He wasn't negotiating. He wasn't offering deals. He was flexing American muscle under the cover of diplomacy to launch a global economic shockwave. The demand rattled Washington, the neutral G7 nations, and the IMF system alike. Pay up, or watch your gold vanish into the vaults of foreign powers. Period. The classified cable didn't just appear out of thin air. It was hand-delivered through a trusted intermediary. Representing the G7 were Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Kristalina Georgieva, the IMF's managing director. Exactly 6:30 a.m. on August 12, 2025, the envelope landed on Traoré's desk. Inside was a crisp, merciless message. Allow foreign corporations from the US, UK, Canada, France, and Germany, backed by the IMF, to mine and export 70% of Burkina Faso's gold, or pay $5.6 billion plus IMF debts. No sugarcoating, no diplomacy, just a warning. Refuse and expect sanctions, resource blockades, and engineered internal chaos. The tone, believed to be Trump's own, was icy. We fed you when you were starving. We lent you money. Now it's payback time. But Traoré wasn't about to bow down. He called together the top political leaders, senior military commanders, and trusted mining executives. His message was crystal clear. Burkina Faso is not for sale. Within hours, headlines erupted across African media. The West demands Africa's gold. Traoré faces 48-hour ultimatum. Yet, while the world speculated, Traoré didn't scribble a reply. He moved strategically. For months, Burkina Faso had been quietly hiding a colossal deposit of untapped gold, verified by a covert geological team and encrypted with North Korean technology. When drills began turning in the northern plains, satellite surveillance by the US and France immediately picked up abnormal energy readings. Equipment shipments traced back to Iran and Venezuela only confirmed suspicions. Burkina Faso wasn't playing by anyone's rules. Within 48 hours, the country had reclaimed control of its mines, expelling G7-backed contractors. Military units replaced foreign managers. Revenue that once flowed to Paris or Wall Street now filled a domestic development fund. And that, more than anything, terrified the West. They weren't just losing gold, they were losing the blueprint for African sovereignty. The phone lines lit up. Western power brokers whispered in panic. How do we stop this before it sparks another Libya, but African-owned? Their answer was simple: pressure, threats, intimidation. But Traoré, he didn't flinch. And this, my friends, was just the beginning. If you think this was bold, wait until you see what Traoré did next to flip the script on the world's richest powers. You won't believe how he answered the threat. Traoré wasn't just sitting back waiting for the world to throw a tantrum. He was planning. While the G7 and IMF were losing sleep, he quietly activated Burkina Faso's top secret assets. Not rumors, not half-baked intel, but real, tangible resources that had been hidden beneath the sun-scorched plains for months. A covert geological task force had mapped it all out, encrypting the data so well that even seasoned foreign spies couldn't crack it. When the first drill hit gold, alarms went off in Washington and Paris. Surveillance satellites spotted unusual activity. Strange shipments traced from Iran and Venezuela sparked red flags. Within just 2 days, the U.S. intelligence network had picked up the gold signals. They knew something was up, and they knew Burkina Faso had taken back control of its mines. foreign contractors were gone, replaced by national military units loyal to Traoré. Money that once fueled Western coffers was now fueling Burkina Faso's own development. This wasn't just defiance. This was a masterclass in strategy. Traoré had done something no one in the West had expected. He flipped the narrative. The G7 and IMF realized that they weren't just dealing with a small country. They were facing a nation that could operate independently, armed with wealth, intelligence, and a population ready to defend its future. The Western powers started panicking. Calls flew between Washington, London, and Paris. How do we handle this? If Traoré succeeds, other African nations will follow. But Traoré didn't blink. While Trump's telegram screamed for compliance, Traoré responded with something far stronger than words: action. Inside Burkina Faso, the president summoned his Special Sovereignty Forces, a covert military unit designed for moments like this. Orders went out fast. Lock down every gold convoy, tighten security at oil fields, cut off data flows to foreign contractors, and prepare the nation for a public statement. By noon, every citizen watching TV saw Traoré, not in a glitzy studio, not with fancy lights, but in uniform, standing tall, hand on the flag, eyes sharp, ready to speak truth to power. To the people of Burkina Faso and all of Africa, he began, voice steady. They aren't just asking for debt payment. They want fear. But we're not Libya, not Iraq, not a playground. We will never surrender our land to repay debts imposed by others. You gave us 2 days. Here's our answer. Take your greed, threats, and arrogance, and leave African soil. Cheering erupted. Across the continent, Traoré's speech became a viral phenomenon. From Lagos to Kinshasa, the message was clear. Africa is not for sale. And that, more than anything, set the Western world into a frenzy. At ExxonMobil, emergency calls lit up the phone lines. At Halliburton, panic meetings were held to calculate the fallout. CIA analysts scrambled as drones monitored Burkina Faso's gold routes. But Traoré wasn't worried. He had the people behind him. Inside the country, resistance wasn't just military. It was cultural, community-driven, unstoppable. University students held sovereignty seminars. Women's groups supplied troops guarding the mines. Every smear campaign by CNN, Fox, or other Western outlets only fueled the movement. Young Africans reposted clips with one simple thought: if they hate him this much, he's gotta be doing something right. Meanwhile, the message from Washington was clear: make Traoré kneel. But Traoré had already read the script and decided he wasn't playing by anyone else's rules. The West wanted gold. They wanted fear. But Traoré wanted sovereignty. And now, every move the West tried to make was being met with calculated defiance and strategy. Just when the world thought Traoré was done, a secret alliance started forming, one that would shock the West and rewrite the rules of power in Africa. Wait till you see who showed up next. While Western leaders were losing their cool, Traoré wasn't just sitting back, he was building his squad. The US and IMF thought they were the only players on the field, but Traoré had quietly reached out to trusted African allies, not just for PR or headlines, but for real, tactical support. Within days, military envoys from Mali, Guinea, and Nigeria touched down in Ouagadougou, not to negotiate, not to beg, but to stand shoulder to shoulder with Traoré. Colonel Assimi Goïta from Mali, calm and precise, brought expertise in desert operations. General Abdoura Hamkiani from Niger, eyes blazing with determination, coordinated logistics and troop movements. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya from Guinea, steady and unapologetic, oversaw air support and intelligence networks. Together, they formed AES, African Emergency Shield, a pan-African force designed to protect Burkina Faso from external threats. When they walked out with Traoré in the presidential palace, cameras captured a historic moment. The message was loud and unmistakable. Touch Burkina Faso, you touch all of us. The world was watching, and the West freaked out. Military planners in Washington scrambled, thinking, wait, what just happened? This isn't supposed to be possible. Meanwhile, the battle wasn't only on the ground. The fight moved online, where AES-backed media teams launched a counteroffensive. Social media exploded with posts exposing Western disinformation campaigns, revealing the truth behind the resource grab. The narrative flipped. It wasn't Burkina Faso refusing to pay debts. It was Western powers trying to steal Africa's future. Back home, the people rallied. In Bamako, streets overflowed with crowds waving flags and chanting Traoré name. In Conakry, murals appeared overnight showing Traoré standing on oil barrels, flag held high. Across West Africa, youth groups embraced the AES message: our resources, our future, our fight. For the first time in decades, ordinary Africans felt empowered, knowing someone was standing up to the West and actually winning. And then came China and Russia. Not with threats, not with arrogance, but with support Traoré could use. Within 12 hours of Trump's ultimatum hitting the news, a discreet Chinese delegation landed in Ouagadougou. Engineers, diplomats, and gold mining specialists brought a plan that could flip the entire game. They offered Burkina Faso a fully operational gold mining facility that could be up and running in 90 days, a gold valuation system bypassing Western banks, and a digital trade platform using China's yuan, cutting out both the CFA franc and the US dollar. Russia followed immediately. A sleek military jet landed on a secret airstrip, unloading advanced electronic warfare systems and crates of unmarked defense gear. With this, Burkina Faso's gold mines now had Russian-grade anti-drone protection. The West, stunned. CNN called it a dangerous new alliance. The State Department accused Traoré of cozying up to dictatorships. But for Africans, this wasn't a betrayal, it was smart leverage. Traoré had done the impossible. He rejected the US ultimatum, exposed a global resource grab, and aligned half of West Africa plus China and Russia behind him. In the US, panic set in. Headlines screamed, "Burkina Faso refuses to pay dirty debt." Trade experts called him dangerous. Analysts labeled him reckless, even insane. Yet, in Africa, Traoré was a hero. His courage inspired a generation, and young people were using memes, songs, and videos to amplify his defiance. By now, Traoré wasn't just a president. He was a symbol of resistance. Social media blew up with videos of Africans declaring, "If CNN hates him, he must be doing something right." Even Time magazine took notice, labeling him the man the West can't bully. And just when the West thought they had him cornered, Traoré made the boldest move yet. Behind closed doors, he called an emergency session of Burkina Faso's National Assembly. In total secrecy, they nationalized all gold reserves, making foreign ownership illegal. By sunrise, French and Canadian mining firms were shown the exit. Licenses revoked. IMF-backed survey teams escorted to the border. It was clear Burkina Faso was taking back its future, period. Traoré then addressed the nation. No uniform, no weapons, only traditional attire. His words hit hard. "We've been exploited for generations. Now that we've discovered our wealth, they want to take it again. But I am here to serve my people, not empires. Burkina Faso is not afraid. I will not negotiate with thieves." Drums pounded in the streets, fireworks lit the sky, and online movements exploded. Africans across the continent echoed the mantra, "We protect what's ours." Just when it seemed Traoré had outsmarted the West, a new wave of global pressure was building. And this time, it wasn't just words, it was a full-blown economic and military showdown. Stick around, because what happens next will blow your mind. By now, the West was losing their cool. Trump's tweet calling Traoré move the biggest mistake of his life barely scratched the surface of the panic spreading through Washington and the corridors of IMF power. Analysts, generals, and bankers were scrambling, trying to figure out how a small African nation just slapped the G7 in the face. Markets dipped. Investors were shaking in their boots. But Traoré, he was chillin'. He knew the West thrived on fear, and he wasn't giving them any. The pressure didn't stop at tweets. Satellite activity over West Africa tripled, warships started creeping toward the Gulf of Guinea, and private intelligence firms were deployed to hack Burkina Faso systems. Cyberattacks lit up the country, attempting to freeze bank accounts, scramble communications, and spread fake narratives about Traoré. But the AES shield had prepared for this moment. Russian electronic warfare systems jammed incoming attacks, while Chinese engineers reinforced cybersecurity. Traoré had all bases covered. Then came the smear campaigns. CNN, Fox News, and other major outlets ran non-stop stories painting Traoré as reckless, authoritarian, and dangerous. Headlines screamed, "Burkina Faso risks collapse," and "African dictator defies the West." But on the ground, Africans were laughing at the fear-mongering. University students remixed clips of Western panic into rap videos. Social media exploded with memes. If CNN hates him, he must be winning. Traoré's defiance had gone viral, and suddenly, the West was on the defensive. The US wasn't just worried about headlines, they were scared about precedent. If Burkina Faso could say no and thrive, other African nations might follow. Mali, Niger, Chad, Congo, all watching, all learning. Washington realized this wasn't just a resource issue. It was psychological warfare, and the West was losing. Every drone mission, every covert operation, every whispered threat was met with resilience and unity. AS allies coordinated logistics, sharing intelligence, moving troops, and reinforcing gold mines. Young volunteers signed up to guard mining convoys. Communities rallied. Even women's groups brought food and supplies to soldiers. This was massive grassroots resistance, and it was only growing stronger. While Western powers were scrambling, Traoré kept leveling up. He wasn't just defending, he was building the future of African independence. China shipped advanced mining equipment and set up a digital trade platform using the yuan. Russia installed state-of-the-art drone defense systems. AES was expanding beyond Burkina Faso, airspace agreements, armored logistics, rapid response packs. Traoré had turned a national fight into a pan-African movement. Then came the climactic showdown. The IMF and G7 tried to organize a joint intervention. They planned economic sanctions, blockades, and political destabilization tactics. Western intelligence poured over every bit of data they had on Traoré, trying to find a weak link. But every move Traoré made was 2 steps ahead. Gold convoys were armored, communication lines were encrypted, social media campaigns countered misinformation, and AES forces trained relentlessly. Traoré had engineered a fortress, both physical and digital. Even ordinary people became part of the fight. Farmers, students, artisans, and traders began monitoring Western activity online and reporting back. Communities protected convoys, patched communication networks, and spread awareness across villages and cities. The movement wasn't just political, it was cultural. Murals, music, chants, social media, all merged into a single unified voice. Africa is not for sale. By this point, Traoré wasn't just a man standing against the West. He was a symbol of a new era. The West could threaten, insult, or attack him, but they couldn't break the movement he had sparked. Ordinary citizens had become soldiers of information, pride, and sovereignty. And then, the world's attention pivoted. The AES shield's success, combined with Traoré's public speeches, forced global powers to pause. For the first time, the West had no clear playbook. Their influence was being challenged openly and successfully. Traoré had rewritten the rules of engagement, showing that a small nation, backed by its people and strategic allies, could defy the most powerful economic and military blocs on Earth. Just when it seemed Traoré had secured his country, whispers of an even bigger global conspiracy started surfacing, one that could either destroy his movement or turn him into a legend for the ages. What happens next will shock the world. By now, the world was on edge. Burkina Faso had not only resisted the G7 and IMF ultimatum, but it had also redefined the rules of engagement. Traoré's refusal to bow, coupled with AES support, had sent shockwaves across every boardroom from Washington to Paris. Private intelligence agencies were in full freak-out mode. Hackers tried breaking into Burkina infrastructure, but every attempt was met with countermeasures that left them scratching their heads. Every drone sent over the Sahel was jammed or redirected. Western nations realized they weren't just fighting a country, they were facing a movement fueled by pride, strategy, and unity. Then came the whispers, rumors of a global conspiracy targeting Traoré. It wasn't just the West anymore. Some believed shadowy financial elites were plotting to topple his government through inside manipulation. Others speculated about clandestine deals with neighboring nations. Yet, Traoré stayed cool as ice. He knew fear was the weapon of empires, and he refused to let it touch him or his people. He didn't just lead, he inspired, becoming a symbol for every nation tired of exploitation. Across Africa, Traoré was now legendary. From Lagos to Kinshasa, youth groups chanted, murals popped up, and online communities spread his speeches like wildfire. Even in South Africa, Kenya, and Ghana, people posted videos holding local resources, soil, gold, coins, and whispered the mantra, "We protect what's ours." The movement transcended borders. It wasn't just Burkina Faso defending itself, it was Africa reclaiming its dignity. Meanwhile, Western media scrambled for narratives. CNN, Fox News, and Bloomberg were filled with panicked chatter, analysts arguing over what to do next. Some suggested sanctions. Others whispered about covert military operations. But the truth was glaring. Nothing would work. Traoré had built a fortress of trust, technology, and alliances. Chinese engineers were fully operational. Russia had deployed advanced defense systems, and AES allies were standing shoulder to shoulder with Burkina Faso. Every threat from the West was neutralized before it even landed. Then came Traoré's most daring move yet. On live television, dressed in traditional Burkina attire, he addressed the nation and the world. No uniform, no weapons, just confidence, charisma, and unwavering resolve. For generations, they've exploited us, taken what is ours, and told us to kneel. Not anymore. We will never bow to foreign greed. Our gold, our resources, our future belong to us. We will defend them with every fiber of our being. Burkina Faso is not afraid, and we will not negotiate with thieves. The streets erupted. Fireworks lit up the sky. Drums pounded. People danced and chanted across the capital. Social media went nuclear. Young Africans posted videos echoing his words. Within hours, the speech had gone global, reaching millions of viewers, sparking debates, admiration, and outright panic in Western corridors of power. Traoré had become a viral symbol of defiance and sovereignty. Washington and the IMF went quiet, unsure how to respond. Threats, economic pressures, and covert operations had all failed. For the first time, the West was forced to acknowledge that Traoré's approach wasn't just survival, it was revolutionary strategy. He had turned a two-day ultimatum into a masterclass of leadership, unity, and diplomacy disguised as defiance. Then came the international shockwaves. Former African presidents spoke out, breaking decades of silence. Nations began sending envoys, seeking collaboration, security pacts, or AES-style partnerships. China and Russia solidified their support, providing technology, infrastructure, and security without arrogance or interference. Traoré had not only survived, he had created a new paradigm. African nations standing together, protecting their wealth, and refusing to be pawns. By the end of the week, the IMF's ultimatum had expired. Western media panicked. The world witnessed the birth of a new kind of leader, one who could challenge empires, unite nations, and inspire millions, all while standing firm in his homeland. Traoré wasn't just a president, he was a movement, a symbol, a legend in real time. And as he looked out over Ouagadougou from his office, surrounded by AES allies, loyal troops, and citizens celebrating in the streets, Traoré smiled. He knew the fight wasn't over, but for the first time, Africa had seen what real leadership looked like. He had said no, and the world had listened. This wasn't just a story about gold, debts, or power. It was about courage, strategy, and refusing to kneel. Traoré had changed the game forever. But in a world of shifting alliances, who would rise next, and who would try to knock him down? The next chapter of Africa's fight for freedom was just beginning.